This week's talk title is called Finding the Valley of the Kings. Last week, we started out on the series about spiritual journeys. And last week's talk title was All the Places You Will Go. And so I gave you some homework if you so wish to do. You don't always, the nice thing about not being in school is you don't have to do your homework. But if you were not here this last week, over on that far table up against the walls is this. This is the first page of your spiritual passport. So on the outside, it's just your spiritual passport. On the inside is the homework part. So if you chose or choose to do it, it's got a place to either put a picture of yourself, or I have some stickers over there that you can use. They're just kind of fanciful, smiley faces and fantastical creatures and things. So you can put one of those there. It's got your name and state of mind. And then last week, we talked about an acronym, because before you can go traveling, whether it's regular traveling like Dr. Linda is doing across the country, or it's a spiritual journey, before you can do that, you need to pack. And so the acronym is PACK, and it stands for Passionately Allow Curious Kindness. And then passionately, just a brief refresher, passionately is what we do. Our passions are what actually give us the intention to get off the couch, right? Off of our spiritual couch and go journeying and go on that spiritual journey. And then allow, we were talking about allowing from the place of detaching. So we're going to cut the cords of the things that are holding us onto our spiritual couch so that we can actually get up and go off. Our curiosity is what kind of propels us. It gives us a reason to go in one direction or another. And remember, we talked a little bit, I told the story of little Jane Goodall and when she was 4 years old last week, and how her curiosity really propelled her into being a person that never existed before, a primatologist who actually went out in the jungle and lived with the apes and learned from them in a different way than anybody else before her. And then kindness. Kindness, the Dalai Lama said that kindness gives us purpose. And so we use kindness on our getting ready for our spiritual journey, because it gives us a purpose when we go out. If we're going to go in a particular direction, it kind of impels us in the direction that we're headed into, that our curiosity has pointed us to. So that's last week, and if you want to do those, if you weren't here, go ahead and pick those up. Now this week, we've got some more pages for you to take home, and I'll talk a little bit more about those, but you'll pick them up off the tables over there, and they're for your passport. So at the end of the 3 weeks, you'll have a full passport that you can use for your spiritual journey. And so this week's talk title is called Finding the Valley of the Kings. Now, what the heck could that mean? I wonder. Well, we'll find out in just a minute, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the real Valley of the Kings today, because what we've been doing is we've been kind of splitting between real travel and, what does it mean to do real travel in the real world, and how we can use that analogy for our spiritual traveling, right? You need a real passport to go traveling in the real world. We're doing a spiritual passport for our spiritual journey. So the Valley of the Kings is actually the valley that's in Egypt where all the pyramids are, right? So it's a long ways from here to do that travel. You have to get up and you have to go on a plane or a boat or something, to get way over there to the other side of the world. And lots of people go there every year. They say that On a slow day, about 3,000 people, 3,000 or 4,000 people show up there on a slow day. And on a high day, when the cruise ships are docking and everything, they can get as many as 25,000 people going through this valley in one day, right? Lots and lots of people. So it's a place of high interest. Well, it's of high interest because for 500 years, the pharaohs created pyramids there, and they created them to be a place for themselves to have eternal rest. And, you know, the thing that's so intriguing about that is they put all their treasure down there in those tombs, right? And I was fortunate enough to be at King Tut's tombs exhibit when it came through in the, I think it was our centennial, our bicentennial year. I think it's come through one more time, but I saw it when I was just 15 years old, and I loved it. You know, it was fabulous because you got to reach out, you didn't get to touch, but you got to kind of reach out towards, you know, the past, the things that were important to a people that don't live anymore. And there's wisdom, it felt like, as I was standing there looking at King Tut's sarcophagus and all those wonderful golden icons of one sort or another, and looking at that and going, wow, you know, those people think. They thought differently than I think. And I was 15 years old thinking this, and I remember going, wow, you know, there's a touch across all of those years, thousands of years, just by me being there. And so people are drawn to go to the Valley of the Kings because there's treasure there. There's wisdom and all from the past that we get to touch into. Now on our spiritual trip, you know, when we do our spiritual journeying, that's why I've said we want to go to the Valley of the Kings. Because it's the same analogy, but a little bit different, right? When we travel in the real world to the Valley of the Kings, we have to go all the way across the world. When we travel for spiritual journey, what we said last week was we wanted to do it from the comforts of our home, right? Dr. Linda is going off to Vegas, or she's going off to Dallas. I was in Vegas for a wedding last night, and you know, so travel. It's so much easier to do spiritual traveling from your home. And so this allows us to do that, right? Because the Valley of the Kings, the spiritual Valley of the Kings is inside, right? It's not a place that's out there. It's a place that's in here. It's a place that we can just reach out and touch at any moment, at any time. Our spiritual passport helps us to go there because it helps us prepare ourselves to go there. But there really are no barriers, right? Spirit does not place barriers up between you and the wisdom, intelligence, and clarity that you are. It's just a full pass, right? It's like going to the international border and just walking through. And so I'm just very grateful to be able to go inside. And it's also similar to the Valley of the Kings that's out there because there's all this wisdom, there's treasures that are there. There's pearls of wisdom, golden nuggets of intelligence, and gems of ideas. All of them live right at the very center of your being, at the very essence that you are. And while the Valley of the Kings out there is crowded, thousands of people, and you have to stand in line and all that type of stuff, the Valley of the Kings inside is your own personal place, right? Each one of us has our own Valley of the Kings. So it's a place where we go to be really more by ourselves and to commune with the wisdom and intelligence and clarity that God is at that place inside of us. So when we do our traveling in the real life, we want to take to the analogy of our spiritual journey, and we want to keep those in parallel. And so there's some things that we have to decide on before we go on our spiritual journey, and also before we travel in the real world. So when we travel in the real world, we go and decide when we're going to leave, right? We have to decide how long we're going to stay there. We have to decide, where are we going? Where is that? And we have to decide, how do we get there? Are we going to take a plane, a train, boat? What's our mode of transportation? So let's talk about some of the aspects of our spiritual journey that we were on in the same way. So when do we leave? Have you ever said on your regular, for your regular traveling, that there's some place out there that you're really going to go? For me, for many years, yeah. For many years it was Italy, right? I wanted to go to Italy. And because I wanted to go to Rome, I wanted to go to the Colosseum, I wanted to see the Vatican, I wanted to go on to Florence and see the statue of David, and I wanted to see a city that had the feeling and flair of a Renaissance city. And I wanted to go on to Venice, and I wanted to take a trip down the canals in a gondola and just have the time of my life. But I waited for a long time to do that, right? And so in our real world traveling, oftentimes we make a plan, but we don't do it right away. We procrastinate. And there's a lot of reasons, really, why. Italy is kind of expensive, and you have to find time to get off from work and do all those things. There's a lot of reasons why we might procrastinate in real life. But why are some of the reasons we procrastinate for our spiritual journey? Because we don't have to go anywhere. We get to just be there at our home and settle in and take our trip to the Valley of the Kings. And we also, it doesn't cost any money or anything. It's just those things. But sometimes we procrastinate a little bit because our ego is really good at creating distractions. It really is. Those distractions. Worry is one of the distractions that our ego creates. How are things going? Oh, I couldn't possibly spend that kind of time. I'm so busy. It's so important that you focus your attention on me, the ego. But we have the opportunity to let that go. We have the opportunity to focus on what we decide is important in our life. We have the opportunity to go on a spiritual journey at any time, right? Just set some time aside. And what are the tools that we use to go on our spiritual journey? Well, we can use visualizations, are a nice way of getting us motivated, getting us moving. Some people do maps or collages that say, are a visual reminder. You can put little sticky notes on your, around your house to remind you to do your spiritual journey. So whatever works for you, that's what we should do. And then in the real world, we worry about how long we're going to stay. How long? And there's so many things that go into that. Do I have vacation time from work? Is there somebody there to take care of my pets at home? All of these things that in the real world kind of keep us, maybe doing a short time. But on spiritual journeying, we can decide to just take a little time every day. And, you know, it doesn't cost any money really, no real money. What it does cost is spiritual coin. I don't know whether you're familiar with that term. Emerson uses it. He says that, you know, we get spiritual coin by doing kindnesses in the world, by being true to our inner self, by doing our practices. You know, we gain spiritual coin. And then we get to spend that on our spiritual journeys, which just is a way of us being and moving through life with joy, confidence, and ease. So, where are we going to go exactly? That's another question that we ask when we travel. Where is it that we want to go? Are we going to go to the Valley of the Kings in Egypt? Are we going to go to Italy? Are we going to go to France? Are we going to go to the grocery store? We get to choose where we're going to go. Where are we going to travel to? On our own spiritual journey, it's like we get to decide to go to the Valley of the Kings, which lives within, but where within the Valley of the Kings do we actually choose to go? What area do we want to visit? Because, you know, it's kind of like the saying of my father's house has many rooms, or my father's mansion has many rooms. Well, your Valley of the Kings inside of you also has many rooms. It has many places for you to visit. And so it's not a one-stop, you know, been there, done that destination, right? It's kind of like going to New York. You go to New York and there's museums and there's the plays and there's the what's the Statue of Liberty. You know, there's all sorts of things that are in New York that you can go and visit. For our spiritual journey, though, we want to visit things maybe like prosperity, joy, health, maybe love. Maybe love is a good place for us to go inside and to get that internal teachings that God always has for us in each one of those places. Now, when we go to visit a foreign country, Americans are lucky. Actually, we just tend to write a little visa as we get off the plane, right? But some countries, you actually have to have a visa before you go. Right? You have to have something that you've gone to the consulate and gotten a visa, and they say, yes, verily, you can visit our country. And so today, for your spiritual passport, out on the tables after service, when we're doing fellowship, out on the fellowship tables, you're going to find visas. And so it's a visa for each one of these different types: prosperity, joy, health, and love. And so for homework, if you choose to do it, for the homework today, just pick one of those visas and play with it. You can have multiples. I brought some extras, so there's some extras over there. But pick a visa, one that you want to really set an intention to visit over the next week. Right, we're going to just have some time to visit. So that's going to be for after service over on the tables. And then, as I said last week, you got the front page. And so if you keep each one of those sheets that I give you at the end of the 3 weeks, you can staple them together and you'll have your spiritual passport to keep. So we need a way to find our the place, the location within the Valley of the Kings. So once we decide on that place, I'm going to go to, let's say I decide I'm going to go to Love. So out of all the places within my own Valley of the Kings, how do I decide, how do I get there? How do I actually plan on arriving? Well, for that, in the real world, when I'm trying to find my way around in a foreign place that I've never been, I hire a guide. Guides are wonderful. Have you ever used a guide when you're traveling? You know, they're great because they take you. When I was in Thailand, you know, I hired a guide and he only cost about $30 a day. And he took me around to the back ways. You know, I was able to travel on the water taxis. And, you know, I didn't go to the American restaurants. I went to the little out-of-the-way, back-way places. He taught me to eat. They eat with a fork and a spoon, but they take the fork and they pile the food on the spoon instead of, you know, our way of eating, you know, stabbing everything with our fork. But the guide is just a natural resource for that area. So, let me think. Who would I hire as my guide for my spiritual journey? Well, two thoughts come to mind. One is you can always pray with your practitioners here, right? After service. They're a wonderful resource for you. And then second, God, Spirit, that holy essence that lives within each one of us. It is always available to be our guide. You know, when I'm not quite sure of where I'm going in life, my prayer is for clarity. Clarity is I just identify with the wisdom, intelligence, and clarity that God is, and I ask for guidance. And the wonderful thing is, you know, that prayer, it seems a little weak, right? It seems like, well, you know, you should be praying for something in particular, and that prayer is not really that. But what I've found in my life is that those prayers for clarity are the most powerful prayers. It's because I'm not directing Spirit anymore. I've gotten out of the way of that essence leading me. I've gotten out of my ego, and I've made a place in my heart. I've made a place in my heart for God to respond. So, you know, just like those ancient mariners, and just like Dr. Linda, she's gone off to the Lone Star State of Texas, right? God is our star. God is the star that just guides us forward on that path that is just the right one for us. And so, in our prayers will tell us how we're going to get to that spiritual journey. And I just want to leave you with a quote out of The Way of Mastery, one of my favorite books ever. And it says, "There is but the mind of Christ within each of us. As a spark of divine light, as a sunbeam to the sun, rest eternally in perfect communion and connection always. The great secret is this is the state of your reality. In each and every moment, you abide in perfect communion with the whole creation, since all things are but temporary modifications of the one fundamental energy that I have chosen to call the Christ mind, the offspring of the Father. So we are in perfect communion. When he talks about the Christ mind, by the way, it's not Jesus Christ's mind, it's the Christ mind inside that each one of us has. It's the mind that we have when we know ourselves as the life that God is. And so I just want to encourage you over this next week, as we do our spiritual journey, to remember our acronym: passionately, allow, curious, kindness. And to pick up a visa on the table out there, because that will be your special visa for you to go inside to the place that knows the life and the power and the presence that God is. Thank you. Namaste. So let's go within. So I just know that in this time that we have together, that all is well. No matter what the temperature is outside. And I was in Las Vegas yesterday where it was 109. So no matter how the temperature is outside, within us is always a place of peace. A place that is cool. A place that is always, always at peace with the universe, and where we are exactly at the right place, at the right time, in the right space. That's the truth of our lives. That's the truth of the life and the power and the presence that we are as God. We are that essence. We are the life that God is. And so no matter whether it's 72 and balmy or 109 and hot, I know absolutely that in this place that we are right now, that God is with us in every moment. And I know that absolutely that power and that presence, it just reaches out and embraces each and every one of us that's here today. That life that is the life that God is moves through each individual life. It answers the questions. It is the beloved. It is that place within us that enwraps us, that enfolds us, that knows us so intimately, so deeply, so preciously, that I can reach out and touch it in my own mind. I can reach out and visit it in my own spiritual Valley of the Kings. And I can always bring back the wisdom, the clarity, the intelligence that it is, the love that it is, from that place, and bring it back into my knowingness. And so I just give thanks for that knowing, for that truth, for being able to, at any moment, touch that life, that power, that presence that God is. I just give thanks for that. And I release this prayer into the law, knowing that it's already fulfilled in the mind that God is, and I say it is good and very good, and so it is. Amen.